Hello, everyone. Good evening, and welcome to this very special broadcast. I'm fairly certain all of you are wondering when China is something that all of us should be talking about. Why are we suddenly talking about Siachen and demilitarizing Siachen? That's because today the Army Chief General M.M. Naravne held his annual press briefing. It's usually held before Army Day, which is scheduled on January 15th. And towards the fag end of this press conference, which was largely dominated by questions on China, and you'll get more of that at 7:30 p.m. on debrief this evening on CNN News 18. But at the fag end of this press conference, he was asked a question about demilitarizing Siachen, and he said he's not averse to the idea. But before you start thinking that India is absolutely fine with going ahead and demilitarizing Siachen, take a listen to what exactly he has said, because he's laid down some preconditions as well. Something that, and these are the same preconditions that India has been laying down for the last 20 years. Listen in first to what he said.
To demilitarization of the Siachen Glacier, but a precondition of that is to accept the AGPL, that is the actual ground position line. The Pakistan has to accept what are their positions, accept what are our positions, and both of us have to sign on the dotted line before any kind of disengagement takes place.
Okay, let me introduce my guest to you this evening. I have Major General Ashok Kumar, who is joining us on the broadcast to take this topic forward, really. And Pratikrit Pine is joining us as well. He's a strategic affairs expert. And let me tell you, when it comes to Siachen Glacier, it's not just about Pakistan. There's a China angle as well. We'll talk about that. But General Ashok Kumar, I first want you to explain to our viewers what exactly the army chief is saying. Has he said anything new? Has India changed its position on Siachen Glacier and demilitarizing it?
While I will make a single statement that the Indian position has been static on this particular point, but if you allow, I shall just give a brief background so that the viewers can really understand what is the issue all about. After the JNK acceded to India and consequent to 1947-48 first war between India and Pakistan, there was a Karachi agreement, which took place wherein they decided the ceasefire line, that is the line between Pakistan and India, which was being worded as ceasefire line. Now, in that agreement, they have said that this ceasefire line goes to 0.9842, and then they have just said and thence northwards. That is how it has been left. On the maps also, the line up to 0.9842 was marked, but there was no marking beyond this point. And not only that, at that point of time, when it came to 1972 Shimla agreement, then again everything is stopped in a way at point NJ 9842. Of course, they have said there that the point moves to eastwards towards Kona, and then thereafter north eastwards. So Pakistan interpreted the area ahead of 9842 in its own manner, which was suiting it. It assumed to draw a straight line northwards from that point, whereas as per Indian perception and interpretation, it was along the ridge line which was separating both the countries. Anyway, the issue would not have come to the fore had it been limited only to that. But I think Pakistan had certain evil design right from the beginning. That will be illustrated by the fact that in 1957 it accorded permission to a British expedition to go to Siachen Glacier for the adventure activity, and the order was issued under the government of Pakistan. And I must remind you that these are the important sovereignty markers. That is, if you are giving a permission for somebody outside the country to go to a particular area, and then that activity is taking place, it means that there is a indirect authority of your being established in that area. That was repeated again in 1958 when the permission was granted to a Japanese expedition. Anyway, thereafter the 62 happened, and followed by immediately by 62, this aspect is very, very important, that there was a border agreement between Pakistan and China, wherein he ceded more than 5,000 square kilometers of Saksgam Valley to China, area which was disputed. Now this, Saxgam Valley is located just north of, Siachen Glacier. So having done that, still he it didn't stop on that, and from 1970 onwards, he continued sending expeditions. Number of them, successfully climbed, and all these were given under the government of, Pakistan. However, this activity was, noticed by famous our, mountainist Colonel Narendra Bul Kumar, the way he is known, and the India took the expedition from 1977 onwards till 1981, and then they realized that there is something amiss, and it is a matter of chance, which is very very interesting, that Pakistan wanted to pre-occupy this uninhabited area, and they ordered 150 high altitude clothing items to a vendor in UK. It is a matter of chance that that vendor was also supplying to the Indian army. So information got leaked, and Indian army ordered twice the numbers. That is, they ordered 300 sets, and they were able to preempt the occupation of the Saltoro Ridge and the entire Siachen Glacier in April 84 onwards. Famous operation known as Operation Meghdut. And therefore, when Pakistanis tried, it was already occupied, and that became a part of history. Thereafter,
So,
from 84, they had,
so
I just tell
explain
you.
the history to us. Major General Kumar, you've explained the history to us, but let's come to the present. It was important for us to understand what happened in
Absolutely,
1984
absolutely.
and why it happened in 1984. Pratik is coming here. All right. The army chief has said we are not averse to demilitarizing Siachen, but he's laid down the precondition that India has been laying down for the last 20 years.
Absolutely.
But
So,
in the just a minute, sir. I think let's just let Pratikrit come in here. Pratikrit, but here in the current context, in 2022, we are not just looking at Pakistan right now when it comes to Siachen Glacier. There is a China angle as well.
Yes, first of all, Shreya, after what happened last year, especially in the Pangong So Chushul region, and China reneging on many of the pledges of disengagement. I think there's an impression today that if you give up of any of the high altitude areas where you have an occupation today, somebody else will come and take it over. So there will be no permanent disengagement. You cannot just hope that they will keep their part of the pledge. Secondly, the Saltoro Ridge acts as a watchtower. You can keep an eye on what is happening in Gilgit-Baltistan region. You can keep an eye, as to a certain extent, on the other side in the China region, and of course at the Saksgam Valley and the Trans-Karakoram Tract region. And it prevents a direct linkage between Gilgit-Baltistan to that part of the of China. Of course, they can go through the Saksgam Valley region. Why it is important today, what the army general was making a very diplomatic, nuanced statement that we are not averse of demilitarization if the other side, that if is a very important factor, the precondition is a very important factor. Now there is no reason to believe that if the Pakistanis can give over Saksgam Valley to China, tomorrow, if a situation arises that we disengage and somehow, for God forbid, they take it over, there's no reason to believe they will not be that they will not give Siachen over to China as well. So you have to occupy it. Of course, there is a cost involved. No one denies that. The other important part is that it works as a bargaining chip. The bargaining chip is this. We have to understand this from the Malacca Strait angle. Malacca Strait is China's choke point. 80 to 90% of China's export, import, oil procurement goes through that region. And they know that if there is a push comes to a shove in the Taiwan territory and anything in South China Sea, this is where anybody can block them, and a combined might of Quad can actually do wonders. And it's logistically very difficult for China to come across through South China Sea and do things over here. So what they're trying to do as part of Gwadar CPEC corridor is to create a bypass corridor for procurement of especially oil from the Strait of Hormuz and then the Gwadar port into this. In that entire stretch of region, your position in Siachen Valley acts as some kind of a watchtower over that entire Saksgam Valley Trans-Karakoram tract through which the Karakoram highway goes, and links it to the Xinjiang province, where the next major Chinese economic hub is coming up, and which is creating a lot of worry for the Americans. Many of the sanctions of America on solar panels and everything else comes from because Xinjiang is a very resource rich region. The Uyghur problem is one part of it only. So if you give up that, then there's no reason to believe tomorrow the linkages will be far more, and nothing can then stop them. Of course, there are other factors as well. While and also, Shreya, I think there's a lot of emotional attachment of armed forces also, so far as Siachen is concerned. Reason is, there can be a school of thought which can say that once you have shed so much blood for it, why give it up now? And of course, given the manner in the geopolitics is moving today, anything that happens in Taiwan region, keep and please remember this, what I'm saying today, anything happens in Taiwan region, China keeps an eye on what India does in the DSDBO region, or the Xinjiang, near to the Xinjiang or Aksai chain, or what happens in Siachen, because if that bypass is taken care of by China, then only they can afford to have a choked Malacca Strait and do
Okay.
whatever they want in Taiwan.
Okay, let me get in General Ashok Kumar here. General Ashok Kumar, Pratikrit talks about the emotional connect that Siachen has with India's armed forces. The fact is that we have spilt much blood here, and not by way of bullets being fired by the enemy, but by way of avalanches. Every year, almost every year, not just India but Pakistan as well, loses its men to harsh weather, to avalanches. In fact, I remember 2016 when 10 Indian soldiers were buried under the snow because of an avalanche, and it took days and days for forces to dig out their bodies. This happens nearly every year, and the question often been asked is: this is an inhospitable terrain. This is located at 19,000 feet. This is where you lose men every year. This is where you're spending 4,000 crore rupees just to maintain those 800 to 1,000 men. Where is the need? Apparently, there have been at least 3 times seriously that attempts have been made to demilitarize Siachen, but it has simply not worked because this is a strategic advantage that India simply cannot let go, because you can't trust Pakistan, you can't trust the other side. As Pratik is saying, you vacate it, they'll come and occupy it.
You have actually highlighted the issue in a very elaborated manner, and Pathikrit has also brought out certain important parameters. But I have to bring out three more very pertinent issues which have a direct connect what Chief said today. Now,
Hmm.
Chief has not brought out anything out of the blue, really speaking. There have been attempts between the government of Pakistan and government of India, more than 20 years back, to sort out the issues in form of the composite dialogue. In that dialogue, besides the Sir Creek, the Siachen Glacier was also considered a low-hanging fruit, and both the countries were willing to demilitarize it. However, initially, army has large number of apprehension because of the regions of the strategic connect, which was it is giving between Pakistan and China, and that advantage. But after the discussions were taken, it was agreed that till the time Pakistan agrees to our current deployment and that positions are authenticated, what he told about the line of AGPL. If you see the line up to 0.9842 was known as CFL in 1949. In 72 it got converted to line of control, but the line beyond this, which are based on the physical occupation, that is the actual ground position line. So India just wanted that wherever we are today, you authenticate that, we will authenticate your position, and we will be signed between the government of India and Pakistan. As far as the not believing a country is concerned, then that way there is no agreement can actually take place. The nations break agreements, but then agreeing with the sovereign nations has been a routine practice. But this position was not accepted, which was not demanding much. India is willing to vacate subject to this AGPL being accepted by the Pakistan government. Since they did not accept that, then thereafter that withdrawal did not take place. So India's position then and as on date remains that first there should be authentication of the AGPL by both the governments. Thereafter, it should be followed by the demilitarization. After demilitarization, there should be delimitation, and in the end, there should be demarcation. Of course, when this stance was taken, the current stance of China, which has emerged on Eastern Ladakh region, that was not known. Now, if that gets resolved or comes in the peace and tranquility, mandate somehow, then the earlier position of the Siachen Glacier can be maintained even with the agreement being taken place. What you guys told today.
Okay.
However, In case this position further aggravates, I'm sure as of now there is no discussion between India and Pakistan and Siachen. This had happened earlier, but there is a hope if let's say at some point of time if both the governments try to resolve their differences and number of things happen, then this weapon on those lines can be agreed that is best what India can offer.
Okay.
However, okay.
Okay, Pratik, we've already done 15 minutes of this chat. I don't have too much time, but Pratik, one of the interesting things that people who have served in the Siachen Glacier will ask you, what demilitarization are you talking about? There is not a single Pakistani soul in Siachen at the glacier. They're somewhere in the west. हैं कहाँ वो जो demilitarize करें?
Yeah, first of all, I'll tell you, Shreya, one reason why it will not happen is because the Chinese will use an information warfare, saying that the demilitarization India is doing from its part is perhaps because they are overstretched because of the LSE engagement, so they are trying to do this. That's that's the psychological game will China will try to play. That's number one. Secondly, the reason you don't see the Pakistani part of the military is because India is at a higher altitude. You peep down, you will see a lot of Pakistani soldiers sitting over there, and they're just waiting for an opportunity. Because in the I remember when the incident in Doklam happened, some of the personnel in the ITBP was saying that one ITBP person sitting at an altitude with one MMG can take care of a company of the Chinese soldiers who are down the hill. So this is the way when you talk about demilitarization, considering the terrain, it is not that you would see the other side face to face. The other side is on the other at a lower altitude. The moment you give up, the other side will not only take over that, and they will give shape to a grander design. Let's understand, for them it is not just a piece of glacier or ice. It's about a connectivity issue, and most importantly that it works as a watchtower. You get a bargaining chip on what's happening in that entire stretch. So that's the reason why, even apparently though it may not look at a militarized area, it is definitely a region which is militarized in a different, a larger spectrum of things, if it is to be concerned. So
Shreya,
disengagement, demilitarization from 2021 onward, I think it's very difficult now.
Shreya,
Okay,
just
General Kumar, go ahead.
two quick points. Firstly, as of now, the issue of demilitarization is not on the agenda of India and Pakistan. It was long time back. So, as and when it comes on, this will get discussed. However, I have little difference, even let's say, suppose this is an agenda today, and this is agreed on the lines proposed by India, which is very flexible and pragmatic approach. The assumption that if we vacate Saudi and Pakistan will come and claim occupy, we have so much of force differential between Pakistan and India as a nation. We can decimate that nation if that cannot honor its constitutional commitment. So once you go into the agreement, you take number of other actions also. Your capacities to reclaim the capacities cannot be directly immediately in glacier, because it is very true, if a person has gone on a higher altitude to dislodge that, it's very very difficult. What Pakistanis felt then once they had launched this operation to capture Kashmir, what happened in Kargil, because of they were having a higher position, so we suffered a lot of casualties because of that. So to that
Okay.
extent, the point is valid that in case we vacate and we captures, then it will be too much difficult for us to recapture that, and heavy cost. But at the same time, I'm sure once a decision of this kind is taken, as and when this comes on table, the force, difference between Pakistan and India in all other domains is different. They cannot do this and then walk away with the whole thing.
Okay,
Shreya,
Pratik, I
just
have exactly
5 seconds.
1 minute. We've done
Okay,
19
just
minutes.
5 seconds.
1 minute. Go ahead.
Just 5 seconds. The only thing I want to say is that I think we have to understand henceforth in that entire region, it will be Pakistan working in unison with China, or China working using Pakistan as a vassal state for its own ulterior motive. Pakistan today is so much in chaos and problem. They don't have the agenda to take it over. It is the Chinese which will nudge them with money, material, as they have always done, to do something, and it will not remain as it is. That is what I want to say. So it's always China plus Pakistan, or China using the vassal state of Pakistan to do things, not that the deep state of Islamabad itself will be interested to do things on its own.
Okay, we'll leave it there for the moment. General Kumar, thank you very much for your time. Pratik, thank you very much for your time. I know that everyone's speaking about China because that is where the immediate problem is. But since Siachen did crop up in the press conference, and it is something that gets talked about every time there's an avalanche that kills our men, and this is a subject that comes up, we thought it'll be interesting to speak about it at least. Thank you very much, Pratikrit. General Ashok Kumar, thank you very much. Can
Thank you.
Siachen be demilitarized? It will not be a good idea. I think that's what General Kumar is saying, and that's what Pratikrit Payan is saying as well. Thank you very much, and thanks to our viewers for tuning in as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Okay.
sir.